Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Wrestling with the Faith podcast, where a group of everyday people look at Bible verses and topics and discuss what they mean in everyday life in today's day and age. My name is Evan. I'm joined, as always, by Dave, Laurel, Jesse, and Ben. We are also joined again by Jonathan this week. So Jonathan, thank you for deciding to wrestle with us again. And this week we are going to be talking about 1 Corinthians 7, 29 through 31. And those verses are, what I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time from now on, those who have wives should live as if they do not, those who mourn as if they did not, those who are happy as if they were not, those who buy something as if it were not theirs to keep, those who use the things of the world as if not engrossed in them, for this world in its present form is passing away. So, I mean, my key takeaway from that just off the bat is, time is short. We got to make sure we take note of that, and I don't know, don't take things for granted and maybe do stuff you normally wouldn't.
Yeah, I think more of kind of that carpe diem message, that message of, live your life to the fullest, because you never know when it'll end. And I think in this context, it might be more live your life for God, because you never know when it might end.
Along the lines of some of our previous discussions of that always be prepared, because it makes me think of the reading. I'm forgetting which verse it was, that was about the what was it, the maiden that didn't have the oil for the time of the husband or the groomsman.
So I like the part about, if you have a wife, act like you don't, or I'm not sure what exactly that means, but I think it's that flip the world upside down message of, if you're used to doing something, do something different, and kind of change your life.
Actually, in the version, this version of the Bible we have, I can't remember if it's New Living Translation. In that first part, it says, husbands should not let marriage be their major concern. Because it seems like that's a little more gentle than the wording that you had, Evan. But just pretend like you're not married. No. Anyway.
Yeah, I felt like, especially in the version, because I was using the New International Version, is that it's not, I think it's not the letter of what's written, it's more the spirit. Because one of those, for those that are happy, as it like live like you're not, and it's like, okay, well, we're supposed to be sad and depressed the rest of our lives, which, there's times where you're, okay, in any life you're not going to be happy 24/7. Stuff happens, life happens, but I feel like that that may not be what our main focus is.
It seems like, yeah, the main kind of message I got out of that is don't be so concerned with worldly things. I think it kind of says that, don't be so focused on worldly things. Try to be focused on God and what's that kind of thing.
What do we think about, we just had like two different Bible interpretations of what would think. I've always wrestled with that, and if you read a King James Bible versus the the Message Bible, which is like, the more modern language. And, I mean, it just seems like they almost mean different things. I mean, they're very similar, but doesn't I've always wondered, the translation over the years and from different sources, how much does that influence what we think the passage means?
It's like a big game of telephone, I mean, all these years of translations after translations. Yeah. So we kind of have to decipher what it really means.
And, think about the early church. It was an oral tradition, right? Or at least a lot of the Old Testament was oral tradition. And so they just told the stories, and then eventually they wrote them down. So that's, I've always thought that was, it's like a big game of telephone. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, even after that initial version was written, you've gotten, I mean, like you said, we have all these different versions of the Bible, and which has also led to, how many different types of Christianity there are, and how everybody kind of views it slightly differently. I think it's kind of where, that telephone, where man came in and adjusted. And there may be, in some ways when things were initially written down that, okay, whoever was putting it together wanted to convey something slightly differently. So without totally changing what was being said, it's playing around with the wording to try and almost infer something else, I guess, in some cases.
So maybe we should focus more on what these different versions have in common.
Yeah.
Good point.
So they all say the same one message, which is life is short, and don't concentrate on the day-to-day that you deal with every day. Think bigger than that, if you will.
I was pulling up the couple of verses right beforehand. I mean, and summing some of it up, he's saying, if you have a wife, you shouldn't separate, or if you don't have one, you shouldn't be seeking one out. So I'm wondering if it's the focus of doing something for the wrong reason necessarily. So just because you don't have it, I need to make sure I have it. So I am married. I've got a ring on. Versus, doing it more out of that basis of love of each other and love of God, where it is more that faithful or faith-driven union, to where everything comes back to God.
There's a great line in the Message Bible that, because they're into, the hip translation kind of thing. Deal as sparingly as possible with the things the world thrusts on you. This world, as you see it, is on its way out. We were talking before, like when we got on, I was saying, if life's busy and you're just constantly, doing things 24/7, you really just don't have time to relax and to enjoy things. And so, I mean, that's the message that's saying to me, is that if you get caught up in that day-to-day that we all get caught up in, you're going to get lost, and you're not going to take the time you should.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially with everything today and, people today, so many people are focused on running from one thing to the next, and I've got this scheduled, I've got that scheduled, and just being overly busy, where you're not taking the time to really appreciate all that God's given. So if that's making sure to take time off to pray or meditate, or even just, simple as taking a walk through the woods or a park or something, that you can really appreciate everything that God put together and gave to us.
Something that I think has been going on this last year especially, is people are home more and they're watching TV more and they're watching the news, and everybody's really invested into politics now. And that is very distracting from this message here.
Yeah. When you're cooped up in the house and you can't get out and that box is in front of you, you spend a lot of time in front of it.
I actually found like a little like summary, little passage thing, and the like kind of very end of it actually kind of sums up what Evan was kind of saying and everything, where it says no Christian should place their temporary commitment to their spouse or to whatever they're doing above their eternal service to Christ. So I kind of see that it's like, yeah, you're committed to that, but that could be a temporary thing. Whereas, all right, taking the spouse part of the passage, you're committed to them. He wants you to stay committed to them while you're together. But once death happens, they're kind of saying like, you're not technically committed, and you're not. It is temporary. So now it's done, and now you should always be eternally going for Christ.
So with, talking about being locked up, and, you've got plenty of time to sit in front of that little square of TV, or maybe not so little in some cases. What would be something both for Christians, and if we have anyone, who maybe isn't Christian or is kind of on the fence, what is something that we can do easily, nothing too complicated, to really get back to appreciating, God, all that he's given us, and to help give ourselves back to him as we're cooped up?
Well, if you're going to be in front of your little box, why don't you go on our YouTube site and watch the Prince of Peace services every Sunday,
Great plug. Yeah, so that's, obviously we would love if people would tune into ours, but it's also, it is, you get that slightly different message from each place. So whether it's us with Prince of Peace, or this podcast, or finding other podcasts, or just about, I would think just about every church has some sort of online presence now because of not being able to meet in person. So maybe taking some of that time to search around and finding someone that you connect to and connect to what they're saying. So has anyone from this group looked at any other churches, or had paid attention to any other churches and their services, and found anything that's connected with you?
Well, I have recently, but I've been kind of attending it for on and off for 2 years now. But a church in Lakewood has this. Now they have an online service, but they also have a podcast that I've been listening to, and it's just basically a sermon by the pastor, but it's connected to me, and I have some friends that go to it too. So that's something I also listen to during this time.
I guess for me, it's not really, it was a single episode of a podcast. But I think everybody here, I don't know if all of our listeners are familiar with Nadia Bolz-Weber. So Lutheran pastor, very much more on the liberal side, probably not someone a lot of people would initially expect to be a pastor, because short hair, lots of tattoos. But I've enjoyed listening to Armchair Experts, which is a podcast by Dax Shepard, who's married to Kristen Bell. He's a comedian, actor, and he's come out and said he's atheist. But then he had an episode where he had Nadia on, and having that, fairly frank conversation between someone that's like, I don't believe, I'm not against people that do, and like I have respect and kind of understand why, but I personally don't. Having that conversation with, a more liberal Lutheran pastor was cool to get a lot of different perspectives on, and a good discussion.
I think taking the time to get away from the day-to-day life that we live and seeking something, whatever that seeking is, I think is an important thing, especially now. So I mean, I think, and that's kind of the message here, is that don't get lost in day to day and go and still seek God. And so, yeah, I wish I'd spend more time doing that. I actually spend less time doing that now than I have been in the past. And so I really, that's something I really miss, is to really just take some time out and just think and maybe search, again, for podcasts and other things like that, but other messages.
I think for me, one of the things I haven't been great on is taking time to pray or meditate. And what's funny is I'm still continuing to organize and empty out boxes in my basement. I found it was this kind of prayer beads that I made during Sunday school back in, I don't know, 4th grade.
Huh.
And so now I've kept this at my desk so that while I'm working, especially anytime that I'm in a meeting or dealing with somebody I may get frustrated about, because I'm human, is I pick it up and just in my hand kind of play with it as almost like a fidget spinner or something, where it's just something to try and ground myself again. And so that could even be something if you've got, the random beads, or if you have them yourself, or you order some kit off of Amazon or wherever. Could be something, especially families with kids, as a little crafts project. You get some sort of string, you get some beads and put it together, and each one can have its own personality that's kind of personalized. Or if you were me when I was, I don't know, 10 years old, just a bunch of random stuff.
So what's the mission for the week? Find a way to get away from what we do every day. And
yeah, find a way as you go about your everyday life. Find a way that you can ground yourself and kind of get away to ground yourself back in God's teaching and God's love for us, and remind yourself of that love, and see if you can remind others of that love as well. So you got everybody listening, you got those marching orders. Find something to help ground yourself as you go throughout the week, and to remind yourself and those around you of God's love for us. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Comment, let us know what some of your thoughts are on what we've talked about, or if there's other topics you would like us to discuss. And you can find us through the various social medias with Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Westlake, Ohio. And we look forward to discussing and wrestling with everybody next time.